universe, media, network, 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 network.
Welcome to the STL REI Girls Podcast, recorded live at Webster Groves Garden Cafe, 117 East Lockwood Avenue in Webster Groves, Missouri. I'm Sandra Holtmeyer.
I'm Melanie Claborn.
All right, what's new with you today, Melanie?
Well, today is a new day. And we have some sunshine today, and it's a wonderful day so far. I do have really good news. I had a 4-package wholesale deal that I was working on. I just got a text that I have a buyer at the price I was asking for. So,
woo, all right,
just got brighter, I think.
Yeah, nice. Oh, well, that's great. That's a wonderful way to have a day.
How about you?
I have a out-of-town seller that's been very nervous, and we've worked through the process, and we're closing today, so he will be relieved that I was able to help get rid of the property for him. So
fabulous.
That's great. I'm excited for him.
Great closing coming up then.
Yes.
Awesome.
Well, today we are talking to the godmother of real estate and broker at Number One Investment Realty, Ann Riley. Ann is a sunny, disgustingly happy radio rock star of fun and interesting subjects, enjoys the freedom of her work, and has the dream of having enough passive income to laugh at Social Security, therefore having a happy retirement. That's great.
Thank you, Sandra.
Oh, you're welcome. Welcome, Ann. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So, Ann, tell us a little bit about your personal life.
Well, my personal life is I have a husband.
Okay.
And we've been married 46 years.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, yes. And we have 4 grown children and 4 in-law children.
Right.
And 9 grandchildren
that's fabulous.
who are getting grown as well.
They're growing up?
They're growing up, yeah. Our baby is now 10. And our oldest granddaughter is 24. So, yeah, they're getting older.
That's great. So you've been married 46 years. How long have you been in real estate?
Well, if you want to be honest, I bought my very first house with my husband Hammer back in 1976, which was when our daughter Jackie was born. So 76 to now is a really long time.
I know, I'm trying to
not even doing the math, right?
Okay, but I will tell you that as far as actually like buying and fixing houses is a business, I've been doing it 20 years. We've been doing it since 1999 when we discovered that the business that we owned was never going to let us retire.
Okay.
You know, it was a family business that had been in operation for 40 years, and it just never made enough money if you didn't work. Mm-hmm. So you could take money out, but you had to work.
Okay.
So we discovered that we weren't going to be able to retire, and that's what started it.
So it wasn't passive income. It was
it was
trading hours for dollars.
Yeah, I owned a job. I didn't.
Okay.
It was in no way a business by, a hands-off viewpoint.
Okay. And real estate is?
Real estate
can be.
Can be.
Yes,
yes.
Can be. So what appeals to you most about working in real estate?
The freedom to choose who to do it with.
Okay.
To me, real estate is a big game. If you know the rules of the game, it's easier to play. And you get to do it with people you like. And if somebody you don't like, you just don't buy it from them, or you don't sell to them, or you don't work with them. I mean, you have much more freedom. When you have a business where people come to you, you're stuck working with the people who come to you.
Whoever walks in the door, yes.
Yeah, I had one gentleman when I was working, we owned the parts store. He was going to make me a happy woman. And he would come in at lunchtime and he'd say, "Would you like to go to lunch? I'll make you a happy woman." And I'm like, "Yeah, no." I'm like, "I'm married." He goes, "That's okay. I don't, it's okay with me." I'm like, "No." And I had to be nice to him because he was my client and he kept coming in and spending money. But I was taking a lot of flack for being a woman in that
Sounds
industry.
very awkward and uncomfortable.
So now, if somebody makes me feel awkward and definitely I've had a couple of occasions where I felt uncomfortable, where I realized that I hadn't thought through the situation quite, like I showed a house to 2 men and they were working on the gas lines out, and they wanted to know could they see the house, and I took them in. And as I'm going to the basement, I'm like, okay, I'm a single woman I'm by myself, and I'm going down to the basement with these people, and like, this isn't really very smart. So I stepped back into the kitchen and let them go down the steps to the basement, and then I sat on the top step and watched them.
Smart.
Because I just didn't, it was one of those rare times where you're like, what was I thinking? So you just have to remember not to put your own self into that awkward position.
I think that's important. I'll take a little diversion here for a second. If anyone listening is an agent in St. Louis, we have great training around safety. But ladies, if you're a real estate investor or a wholesaler going into these properties, you should be careful. Think about your situation, what you're doing, take someone with you. Just be smart. So don't just run around and show houses to people you don't know, and just be safe. Thank you for bringing that up. We haven't talked about that on any of the episodes. Be safe, ladies. All right. What support did you have when you started? You did one house in 76, and then it sounds like some years went by, and you started doing this really full-time 20 years ago. Did you always have support of family, or what did you rely on for support?
In the beginning, Gary likes to be called Hammer because he hammers.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, same guy. Same guy.
So I do some stand-up, and when I do stand-up, I refer to him as Hammer. So I try to remember to just refer to him as Hammer. So he's very supportive. He's a very hands-on person. He was a mechanic, and we lived a very blue-collar kind of life. So we were used to fixing the fence and planting grass, and we did our own home repairs from 76 on. And in 1999, we decided that the answer was to buy houses to flip and then take the profit from them, and buy rentals to fund our retirement and to have a legacy for our kids. And we started out doing it with our children, and we had pretty good, there were enough of us. There were like 10 of us. So we had pretty good support among each other. Now, I'm pretty sure my parents thought I was nuts, and my grandparents weren't very wild about it, And basically, we lost all our friends because we were so busy doing what we were doing that we didn't have time for friends. You could be my friend if you want to come over and hang out at the job site, but if you weren't hanging out at the job site, we
want to
weren't.
hang some drywall? Sure.
Yeah. That's right.
We'll have a drywall party.
Yeah, so in that respect, I'm looking back, though, and I do want to say that we had a couple of lenders who were really good for us, who were very supportive about what we were doing, how we were doing it, and they lent us money, and it worked. Now, to be honest, we ended up needing the money before we got to the rentals. We needed the money for living, and the money kept disappearing, and so that was part of the plan that didn't quite work out. So just an FYI, when you think you're going to take the money and buy a rental, unless you really are, on it, it's not going to happen.
We were talking about that on another episode, having cash reserves and how important that is, and to have a backup plan. And
excellent, yeah.
Yeah, we need to protect ourselves.
So, and what type of deal was your first real estate deal? There's so many ways you can do real estate. I'm just wondering what was your first one? Did you fall into one, or did you proactively pick one up?
So, we did Driving for Dollars.
Okay.
So this is not the house that we bought in 76. This is our first rehab, to be in business in 1999. Okay, so we did Driving for Dollars, and we drove up and down all the streets around where we lived, and we came across a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, little brick ranch on a street called Rawwind.
Okay.
And we saw it like Sunday night, and it was dark, and there was just there was a little sign that said "for sale," almost like you would put on your car. It wasn't even the big one. It was the little 6x8 piece of. It was on the mailbox, and so I called the phone number, and they said yes, they would show it to me, but I couldn't see it until Monday. They were showing it Monday afternoon at 4:00 to another person, and I said, can I come before them? So that's the first thing you want to do. You always want to be the first one in. So we went over. My son-in-law, James, went with me. Gary Hammer was busy working. Everybody else was busy. James got off work at 3. We went over and looked at the house, and it was a good house. And I walked around upstairs, and I'm like, yep, we're going to do this one. I said, James, your job is to go downstairs and check the foundation, look at the furnace, look at the water heater, make sure we're good downstairs. So he's like, okay, I can do that. So he went down, and he comes back up because it's all good. So I said, how much do you want for it? And she said, we want $30,000. And I said, I'll give you $30,000 for that. And she's like, okay. And I got out a piece of paper and wrote, I, Ann Riley, will buy your house at this address for $30,000. And I signed it, and she signed it. And while I'm writing the piece of paper, the other couple came in the door. And they're like, oh, we're here to see the house. And she's like, well, you can look. She says, but I think this lady over here, I think she's buying it. And so it was just literally a written piece of paper. It was not really, it was a contract because it said I was buying, and I gave her $1 as consideration to secure the contract. So
it's pretty informal, but it worked, huh?
It did. So when we went later on, I went downstairs. James had me come down, and on the wall there was a drawing of Winnie the Pooh that really looked like Winnie the Pooh. And right next to that was another Winnie the Pooh that didn't look too much like Winnie the Pooh. And there was a third one, and that Winnie the Pooh looked like he was on drugs. So it was a little scary in the basement. But it turned out that the only real problems down there were things that the grandson had left. And apparently he had been doing, I don't know, drugs or alcohol, I don't know. But he was the one drawing Winnie the Pooh on the wall. The grandson did not come with the house. He was already gone. Just want to make sure that we're clear with that. So that was our very first rehab. Called an electrician to put in an electric box. Got the whole house painted, put in a new kitchen, had the hardwood floors. We sanded those all down. I mean, this was pretty much like we did it all. And the week before closing, they wanted a septic inspection, which we didn't know anything about it because we were living in a house that didn't have septic. Mm-hmm. So
the septic stuff was new to you at that point.
That was totally new. It was totally like off the wall. So I called somebody I knew, and I said, hey, who do you know out here who can, help me with a septic? So he recommended a person who came out, and the guy, put a cover on it, put the riser on it, and then he called to have them come out and inspect it so that the county would approve it. I mean, because it had to have a permit. And when the county came out, they said it didn't pass. And it didn't pass because he hadn't seeded and strawed.
Oh, well, that's easy.
Okay.
That's good news.
So I called him up and I said, look, it is your job to get the inspector back out here. I will get the seed and the straw and get it down, but you have to get the inspector to come back. And that's how we managed to get the property closed. So he got the inspector back, and he didn't even walk down. We could have just thrown some straw around. He'd have never known.
Yeah.
So, but he caught the neighbor going down the street with a bobcat.
Oh.
And so he was pretty quick getting out of our place and going down the street to see what the neighbor was doing.
Oh boy.
So.
Oh, hey,
okay, a little diversionary tactic.
Of course.
That's a strategy.
Oh yeah, I've used that one before.
Right.
With inspecters.
Yeah.
Maybe.
You just have to. You just need to point him at point to the neighbors. It was great.
That's right.
Have the neighbors say around 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, just pull a big dump truck into your yard.
Right.
That's all you have to do.
That's right. Oh my God.
And then I just would like to say that on that first property we did make $40,000. So it was a good
start.
flip.
Yeah.
Good first one.
Start.
Well, I was going to ask you what your first big success was. So that sounds great. Do you have any other big successes, either money-wise or just pride? What would you say?
Or
yeah.
helping someone.
Yeah.
A time where someone was really in need and you were able to help.
Well, I would say that my most favorite house